Max officially gave us the word. Feels he's good to go. What does having him back mean? And then I guess the second part of that would be, how many has he been able to practice all week? How many days of practice has he been able to participate in?
Yeah, he got cleared yesterday, so he practiced yesterday and then today. So he's had 2. He wasn't cleared for Saturday to be able to play. I wasn't holding him out or anything like that. As soon as he got cleared, he was going to go, and he didn't get cleared until yesterday. So he practiced yesterday, practiced today. Says he feels good. Go again tomorrow and be ready to go Thursday. So that ended me what it means. I mean, we've had a guy that's been here for 3 years and started, and it's a big piece of this team. It's an important piece just because of how this group has all come together. So when you pull one of those cogs out, it has an impact. And hopefully, other guys have been able to grow their games a little bit in his absence. I think Janicki's gotten better. But also, it's important for us going forward to have him back, because it's when we're whole and we're healthy, we're a good team.
Coach, on next, Big Ten tournament, you have an opportunity where you guys might have to play 4 games in 4 days. Is it more so, are you going to take it a game-by-game basis, or is he good to go? And how are you going to kind of maneuver that? Is there a minutes restriction or anything like that you might kind of come across?
Yeah, our trainer hasn't given me any, or our medical staff hasn't given me any restrictions on it yet. I guess we'll determine that as we get to Thursday. I don't foresee any. A lot will be dependent on how he feels, and obviously when you're out for a little while, that he's been conditioning and doing things, fight, pool, etc. But it's not the same as going up and down. I think he looked fine. The last 2 days, you couldn't tell really that he had been out. It's good to have his voice and his little spark back on the court. From that standpoint, it's not the same when he sits on the bench as hard as he tries. So we'll decide, and gather information primarily on how he feels going forward. But I think his plan is to go as much as needed.
Greg, I know, like yourself and really the entire team, John Tanja's always been team first, winning first, but obviously big time accolade, unanimous first team today. Just what does that mean, obviously, for him, the impact he's had, but also as a program and kind of the success and development with transfers?
Yeah, I think it's a huge statement, more than probably anything I can say. In terms of what we've had. Last year, AJ was second team all conference. I think a year or 2 before that, we had Johnny was player of the year. So whether you're coming out of high school, whether you're coming here for 1 year, like John did, Tajay, our ability and our staff's ability to really put you in the right positions and in a successful position and help you get better. Tajay's gotten better as the years gone on. His skill set's gotten better. I think his understanding of the game has gotten better. Definitely has made strides defensively. So it's that example speaks more words than I can throw into it, just because you see somebody take a jump like he's taken and become, one of the more recognized players in the country.
Greg, is no one back, or what's his status?
Yeah, he was back. A little bit yesterday. We varied today. Was more opponent specific. So he's in and out a little bit, but he was back. Said he feels good, and that's the plan. Is he will be back and ready to go.
Hey, Coach.
Yeah.
You guys seem like you have a chip on your shoulder now after Saturday. Seem like guys are even more fired up, ready to go for this Big Ten tournament.
Yeah, obviously Saturday we made very quick work of it yesterday, and we needed to move on quickly. So I probably have dissected it deeper and more intensely and harder than anybody else, just because I knew it wasn't one right now we needed to spend a lot of time on as a team. I did, because I wanted to really dissect the issues, but more importantly, we needed to flush it quick and move on and get ready for what's coming. so. We touched on it briefly yesterday, and they were, so one nice thing about younger adults, they move on faster than a 50-some-year-old head coach does. I tend to dwell on the bad performances longer than I probably should.
John Blackwell was, when asked about the all-conference things, well, actually, first Max kind of mentioned, hey, how could he not be higher than he was on the team? And John seemed a little, I don't know if disappointed is the right word, but he was gonna use it for fuel in the future. I guess I'm just wondering, do you think he has a legitimate point that, should he feel a little way about that?
How he feels and he wants to use it for motivation, great. I haven't taken that approach with him. The list that we got as coaches, and I don't know what, anybody here vote in the media? Jim, you probably saw that same list. With 18 teams, there's so many guys that get nominated for various teams. And then I know they go based on who gets the most votes to separate your first team, your second team, your third team, and your honorable mention. So, and then the same thing with the other old defensive team, freshman team, etc. So, I couldn't believe how long the list was when I got it a week ago, and obviously adding 4 more teams, and it just there was a lot. John's probably not the only guy. There's a lot of good players that didn't get recognized, or maybe didn't get recognized as high as where I had them. I told the team I prioritize winning too. When I decide on casting my votes, winning is important to me, and so that's how I kind of reflect on when I go into those voting situations. Who impacts winning and how is their team done? But like I said, there were so many people on the list, especially the all-conference list. You name it, they were on it in terms of nominations. So it is what it is. I think for all these guys, they understand they want to be the team of the year, and we're not. We're not right now. We got a chance here over the next 4 days to chase another championship. So that's where our minds are right now.
Steven and now.
As March Madness approaches, we're doing kind of a big picture project, and I'm just wondering, with all the changes in college sports with NIL and the portal, from your perspective, is this job any more or less enjoyable than it was 5 years ago? And is college sports better off or worse off because of all these changes?
It's a loaded question, first. It's changed, put it that way. It's different than what it was. I know the portal opens here on the 24th. I joked that it's actually open January 1st because that's when we started getting calls and feelers on people in other places. It's different. But you can't turn a blind eye to it. Right? You can't ignore it until the 24th. We've been making lists since last fall of potentials and where we're going to need help and et cetera. And the NIL piece of it is nonstop. I was in a meeting this morning about trying to raise more funds. So it's, even though we're preparing for Northwestern and Minnesota, there's also other hats that we have to wear, and it is what it is. I think we've done a really good job of embracing the new world and running to it instead of whining about what it used to be or what it is now. So you have to be able to function and function successfully in this new era. And yeah, you have to be able to balance NIL fundraising, the portal, and winning in March, and all at the same time. So it's better or worse. I think there's a lot of things that can get better. I know Chris McIntosh was in DC today testifying in front of a committee with Congress. And I think we're starting to inch our way down the hopefully a successful way, but I don't think that's the end all be all. Even if the settlement gets approved, I think we still have a long ways to go to get parity and sanity and everything else back into and I'm all for student athletes earning money, but we got a lot of things in place that we don't have checks and balances. We're trying to run this without without guardrails or rules or anything else, so we're in a better place than where we were. We're not where we need to be yet, but it's all part of the journey.
How you doing, Gard?
Good. Much better than it was Saturday when you asked.
I was going to ask again about Saturday. I hope to not bring back any bad memories. But one thing you talked about a couple times was the lack of defensive bite, I believe was the word that you used. After looking at the tape, is there anything else that you saw? And also, did you bring this up with the team? And can you provoke this out of them, or do they either have it or they don't?
Yeah, no, it started with ball pressure. Usually your bite comes from your ball pressure. And when we have bite, we usually have really good ball pressure. And we're present and we're in the right spot. We're proactive, we're not reacting to what an offense is doing. So really I think issue 1 and 1A on Saturday was not consistent ball pressure. We had it early, and then for some reason some of it was lined up with what they had on the floor, and I think it got us into, well, we don't have to pressure this guy because he's not a shooter, but then we allowed the ball to get too deep, and it was an avalanche in the wrong way, and we let bad things happen. So it really, your defense starts with what you do on the ball, and that's where that's something we've talked about and worked on, and when we do it, we've been good. Usually throughout the year, when we haven't been as good defensively, it's typically, not everything is related to ball pressure, but it usually starts with not enough pressure on the ball.
Another Max question, because you kind of talked about him and his impact from a vocal standpoint. And I guess I just wondered if you can kind of speak to when I think of Max, is more like he brings kind of my impression is he brings kind of an attitude to the floor. And I don't know if that's accurate, that's my impression, but I kind of want to get your thoughts in terms of the type of leadership that he brings to this group that might be unique.
Yeah, no, I think that's, look at, I've been here long enough to remember and coach a lot of guys that were maybe cut from the same cloth. Go back to Gosser, to Showalter, to Brad Davison, those guys that maybe, Brad scored probably more than any of those other two guys, but just the mantra that they played with, the edge that they played with, the toughness that they played with, and sometimes that came physically, sometimes that came verbally. Sometimes it was a combination of both, but he had that edge that you talked about, and he definitely brings that to our team, and that's an important piece. And you combine with the other people around him, right? Personalities, and it's the right fit. It's maybe the vacancy that we missed when he was out, so to speak, because it's hard to duplicate that or replicate that. So scoring and those things are one thing, but that edge and that competitiveness that he brings to the floor, and it does have he's always a little chippy. He's a little on edge at times, and so were those other three guys that I mentioned. They had that aura about them of just getting their team to really compete, and like I said, they filled a very important role for those specific teams.
Coach,
Yeah.
3-point shooting has been a big part of this team's philosophy. In the last 5 games, it's kind of dwindled a little bit to around 25% or so, but the attempts are kind of still in the same range. Are you seeing something different in the types of shots you guys are taking, or is it just shots maybe aren't falling as much the last 2
Both.
games?
I think it's both. I think, I go through and grade every shot, but I'm also careful not to micromanage. Because if you want players to be aggressive, and a shooter can't be overthinking it. So some of it's been shot selection. We've been in a couple late game situations where maybe we've chunked some that affected percentages. We had to, in a couple late game situations. So, I want them to understand they're all different in terms of what is in their wheelhouse. Like, John Tonje is a bad shot maker. Like, he can take bad shots, but he'll make them, right? Johnny Davis was like that. Johnny can take bad shots and go, oh, nice shot. So AJ was like that a little bit. Some guys just have that ability to make bad shots. If you really graded it on the quality, it would be one you probably wouldn't want to take, but damn thing went in. So what are you gonna say? But by and large, I think don't think we've taken some bad shots, but you're not gonna bat 1,000. You're not gonna take every perfect shot. It's the game, it's the speed of the game, it's how you catch the ball, it's where the shot clock is at a certain time. Some guys that get on a heater want to heat check a couple shots. Some guys that aren't on a heater think they want to heat check a couple shots. So you gotta find the flow, and you gotta know who you are as a player, and that's what I've told them. You have to be able to continue to discipline yourself to know what's in your wheelhouse, what's not, and are you cooking, are you not, and what do we need to as a team? Where are we, time and score, those things? What have the last 2 or 3 possessions been like? Have they been really good? You know, you're more apt to roll the dice on after 2 or 3 really good possessions, right? Versus if we struggle, we gotta get something really good. So I don't think there's ever an exact finite point and a definition to that. Every player has to find their sweet spot, so to speak, and every game is different. Some games we cook. Saturday we cooked early, right? We started 6 for 7, taking some pretty good shots. We missed better shots than we made, you know, and that happens too. And we made some tough shots, and then we missed ones that are, you know, wide open. So you just got to make sure you don't get caught up in the ebbs and the peaks and valleys of it, right? The shooters usually stay pretty calm and don't worry about what happened. They go make the next one. You have to have a short memory.
Greg, when you recruit a guy you know is only gonna be here for 1 year, there's obviously only so much you get to know about him in the recruiting process, and it's speed dating, you call it, right? Once John gets here, are you kind of doing some of the finding out about him and trying to, I mean, knowing that there's an end date of March or April,
Right.
are you working harder along the way to kind of pull him aside, get to know him a little bit better? How does that work these days?
I think that's a very in-depth psychologically based question, Jim. I mean, we can dive deep. You know, we have a company that we use called Profile that helps us with I think I've talked to you about that in the past in terms of our personality traits, learning about players' motivations, people's motivations. My staff has taken it, I've taken it. I can't convince my wife to take it, but just trying to get, you know, behaviors, motivators, those things. So that helps in terms of this era when it's, like I said, whether it's speed dating or getting married off eHarmony or whatever it is, it happens fast, right? You don't have, but I'm noticing the same thing with our younger guys, and we've recruited Freetag and Robinson for, you know, 2, 3, 4 years, but it's still, once you get them here every day, you get to know them even better, and more than, in one way or the other, more than what you thought you knew when you knew them for a long time. So I don't think a transfer with 1 year, do you know that much more about them than you do a kid that you've recruited for 2 or 3 years out of high school. It's because you're around those people, the high school kids, in a very short snapshots, right? 15 minutes after a game, you watch a high school, you talk to them on the phone, and they're at a different stage in their life. You know, at 16, 17-year-old, they view the world differently than maybe what John does at 24. And his experiences, I think, have allowed him to communicate and to be communicated with at a higher level than maybe what an 18-year-old freshman, just because he sees the world and his experiences have given him different perspective. Just like you know, I understand, hopefully have a better grasp of reality at 54 than I did at 34, right? Just comes with the experience and with time. But so I kind of answer your question, like, I mean, it's ongoing. I mean, developing in the relationships. I think John's maturity, he was really quiet when he got here in June, and I think he was probably trying to feel everybody out, but he's also quiet by nature. He's not a guy of a lot of words. I mean, he's great, but he's not you know, Kamari talks a lot, Max talks a lot, Gilly talks a lot. John doesn't. I don't think that's his nature. He's obviously a really good player, but he'll talk to you about really adult things, like not about his favorite video game, you know, or those things. So I always joke that him and I are the only two that walk around the building in the morning with a cup of coffee, you know, just showing his maturity or his age. But they're all different, you know. Xavier Amos is transferred different, but he's at a different stage in his career, and you can tell. And just Same thing with Hunter and with Greppy, and Greppy's, you know, freshman, but, it's really boils down to a age, maturity, experience difference. That's what I see, and it's very obvious when you look at high school, when you look at somebody that's 24 years old, just the understanding of how the world spins is a little more clear to the older guys.
Coach, on Saturday you mentioned you wanted to push some different buttons with this team, or that was something you needed to do. I'm just curious, from your perspective, how difficult of a line is that to walk this time of year when, okay, changes need to be made, but at the same time you don't want to deviate from what's made this group successful so far?
Yeah, I don't think pushing buttons is meaning, or changing, pushing buttons means I'm like trying to find out why we didn't play better, right? So, and I mentioned earlier, you have been in here the whole time, Evan? Yeah, just how this time of year, you better move on quick. You can't let it linger. It doesn't do us any good to dwell on. We'll quickly learn from it. Like I said, I'll take a deeper dive because they don't need to be let themselves get consumed in that. We know we didn't play up to our ability. Credit to Penn State, it's the best they've played since they beat Purdue the first Big Ten regular season game of the year. And we had something to do with that, and they had something to do with it as well. So you learn from it, you quickly move on, because this time of year, you know, we are gonna reinvent the wheel. Let's move on, we gotta get better in some areas. We worked on some of that yesterday, more today. But that would have been the point of focus regardless of the result on Saturday.
Anything else for Coach?
All good? All right, thank you.